Jane sent out a summary of just some of the numbers, so you would have that information. So Jane, in speaking with the state, who 2 months ago in September said, oh yeah, we're gonna get all this money. And then in October said, well, you're not gonna get this money. And then today said, not only you're not gonna get the money, but you're not also allowed to use anticipated money that you might get later to offset the tax rate now. So we had voted back in September to retain all of the funds that was unreserved to help offset the tax, to put into the kitty for later on. So this obviously would negatively impact the tax rate. Jane has some numbers, and just in case some people don't have that information, I'm going to run down through the list she put together for us. So at the deliberative session, we anticipated a 61-cent increase on the tax rate that was passed by the voters in March. At the September 8th board meeting, the estimate was 55-cent increase with retaining funds. So we were able to save a little money there. After all the numbers came in with the auditors, the increase, if we include the kinder funds, would be only 41 cents. So we cannot include the kinder funds. If they don't allow us, which we know now they won't, the tax rate would go back up to 57 cents. So less than what the voters approved, but also more than what we wanted to do at the time. A solution would be to reduce the retained funds, which was 1.2 million approximately, by the $509,000, and increase the unreserved fund of 2.95 million by 509,000. So the tax rate would once again be brought down to that 41 cents. This would mean that we wouldn't use kinder funds as a revenue, but the retained funds would be reduced by that amount. If we get the funds in during this year, we could add the 509,000 back to the retained funds for 21-22. So does anybody have any questions on what we're going over this evening? Okay. So we have the idea, it sounded like the interest was to reduce the retained funds by the equal amount of kinder funds we don't have and can't magically use, so that we would go back to the same estimated tax rate. The urgency is that the town wants to get the tax rate set. We need a tax rate for budgets so that we can approximate any impact of budgeting the tax rate will have for next year. So if we can do that tonight, potentially the state would be able to set Derry's tax rate tomorrow, and then everybody would know going forward that number. So the idea, I think if we have a motion, I think Brenda has the motion to move forward on this.
I move to reduce the retained fund balance by $509,957 and increase the unreserved fund balance to reduce the tax rate by $509,957.
Derek, if I may, can I just ask a quick question?
Yes,
sir. This is a public session right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Derek.
Okay, Nick has seconded. Okay, we have discussion.
Yeah, so could you repeat the number again, Brenda? 509,000 what?
957. And as much as it makes me sad to reduce our unreserved balance, I think that this is a statement that we made when we did this to start with. We said We were anticipating the kindergarten funds from the beginning. When we found out that we were going to wait until January to get them, we felt that we would include them as revenue and, give that to the taxpayers. If, and we also said, I think I said it actually, if we weren't going to get those funds, we could still move the money. I think it's the right thing to do. Hopefully, this isn't really going to come to fruition, and we'll see that this gets corrected in Concord in January, because it was an error. But I just think it's the right thing to do at this point for the taxpayers. And I'm just going to tell you guys, I keep seeing a message on my computer that's telling me my network is unstable, which, surprise, surprise, thanks Comcast. I don't know if I'm cutting out or not. That's what I'm telling you.
And yes, you are a little bit. So,
Sorry.
so
You're
we'll
right what I
take,
said in the chat just for minutes.
yeah, so just so I understand, we're taking $509,957 from the 1.2 million that we currently have retained to lower this, ease this tax rate. And then we're going to try and take that money next year from kindergarten and shove it back into this trust fund. Is that what we're doing?
Well, we're not sure we're getting it, Lynn. That's I mean, we hope we are, but there's no guarantee, right? I mean,
well, I don't know if Gordon wants to speak to the, we talked about it today, so we don't know. We still don't know whether we're going to get it or not. But if we do get it, sorry, if we do get it, we would not spend it, and then we would have it at the end of the year, and you could put it right back and add that fund back, so it'd be 1.2 million. And I did clarify with Department of Revenue today on the retained funds. You can only in total have 2.5%. You can't keep adding every year 2.5% and 2.5% each year. So if you put it back in, you should still be able to add a little bit more to it next year. Not a whole lot, but you'll be able to add some.
The Tara sweet potato is good.
So I think you just have to work on whoever can get that funding passed. That's what we really need right now.
Yeah, so we do have a joint legislative meeting that's in the works, potentially, and Derek, and is Erica with us? Yeah, so
Yeah, I am.
potentially November 30th or so, and there's some other workings going on with on the town council side. I did mention this to Derek the other night, so we'll work on the funding return and make sure that the slate is on board with where they're supposed to go when they're in Concord. But go ahead, Gordon.
What's particularly upsetting about this lack of funding is, one, the rumor is that it was a mistake because the language is that they were going to pay it, but they never appropriated the money to do so.
Right.
Occasionally that happens intentionally. Some are saying, I guess, that was a mistake. Be that as it may, hopefully it gets corrected, because it was a bargain that the state made to entice those last remaining districts that did not have full-day kindergarten to go to full-day kindergarten.
Yeah.
And, it was a big leap for the citizens of Derry to take to support that, and they did, with the hope that this funding was going to come forward. So it should come forward. I just want to make sure that everybody understands, this isn't a trust fund that you're talking about. This is the ability of the district to retain unassigned fund balance from year to year. That law, as Jane just said, allows you to retain 2.5% of the net assessment of the town, of the school district. The net assessment of the school district is the total amount of money that's raised locally to support schools. So if you subtract all the other revenue, what do we raise locally on the taxpayers of the town of Derry to support the schools? That's the net assessment. It includes the statewide property tax net assessment as well as the district's net assessment on the town, on the townspeople. So that amount that's assessed to collect, you take 2.5% of that, and the district has the authority to retain that because the district has adopted that authority. That law changed this year to allow you to retain more if you adopt the revised version of the law. And it will be a good fiscal stabilization tool that you ought to talk about during your deliberations about what goes forward for this year's school district meeting warrant articles, because you can now retain up to 5% of the net assessment and have increased flexibility about how you go about being able to tap into that in an emergency situation. I'll leave that for another day. But for the time being, as Jane says, that the fund balance, as you know, isn't a fund at all, really. It's just a line on your in your accounting software that says, and in your books that says, we've retained this amount of money as unassigned fund balance. So it doesn't get transferred to the trustees of the trust fund. It remains on the district's books and can only be used to either fund an emergency with the approval of the commissioner of the Department of Education, or doing what you're doing today, which is to reduce taxes. Now, this will reduce taxes by returning a portion of that unassigned balance, and make up for the fact that you cannot count on that $509,000 that you were anticipating receiving from kindergarten aid. But as Jane said, if you do receive that 509 because the legislature fixes it, it'll just be more revenue than you had anticipated. And that $509,000 will be able to be essentially returned to the unassigned fund balance, and you'll be whole by the end of the year. So the hope is that that's what occurs and that the legislature fixes it. Hope that helps.
Gordon, for the district to change to the new 5%, does that have to go through a warrant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion on this change? All right, everybody, sounds like they're good.
Can I just ask one question
Go right ahead.
or verify something? So because this is going to be in next year, potentially, it's going to change what we can save next year? Is that right? Or am I misunderstanding that?
Jane, you want to do that, or do you want me to? You're on mute.
Sorry, sure, you can do it.
Okay. Well, Erica, when you say next year, it's still going to be in this fiscal year. One would hope that the legislature cures this in this fiscal year, so that money is allocated to the districts that were promised this kindergarten funding, so that they can count it in the fiscal year that they were originally supposed to receive it. If that's not the case, it would be in the future fiscal year, but we'll have to wait and see what the legislature does. And when you're doing your budget this year, we'll keep a close eye on that. It's, to a certain extent, what you're trying to do right now is make your planning for reducing the tax rate stable and continue the way you had originally planned to reduce the tax rate by counting on this $500,000 of revenue. And you're taking it from a pot of money that's available to do that, which is the unassigned fund balance, reducing the tax rate as advertised and as planned for, and hoping that the legislature fixes their glitch and replenishes the revenue that Derry was supposed to receive, whether it's this fiscal year or next fiscal year, it doesn't matter because the tax rate will have been set as of tomorrow, we hope. Right, Jane?
Fingers crossed, we should be good to go after tonight. And someone did ask me a question earlier today. If we got the kindergarten aid in the springtime, would the tax bills be adjusted? And the tax bills only come out this time of the year and they're never adjusted in the springtime. So they said it once, and then, like Gordon said, it will go towards, if we have money saved aside from, if we got the kinder, it'll go towards the unretained to bring us back up to the 1.2. Or if you didn't want to have a 1.2 retained fund, it would just go towards your unreserved fund balance, and it would go to offset taxes in 2021, next year.
I mean, it's hopelessly confusing, all these dates, but the tax year runs from April 1 to March 31st, which is weird, but that's what it does. And the bills to pay for that tax year are issued usually in December and in June. So the June is always an estimated amount because the district and the town have completed their budget seasons and come up with the amount that they're planning on and what their estimated revenues are. And there's an estimated tax bill that goes out in June. And then that amount is trued up to what your actual revenues are and what your final audited approved expenditures were. And that's what's going on right now. And that tax bill goes out in December. So that's the year, and that's how it works.
Thank you, Gordon. So I think overall, it's a good plan to move this money out and use it for the taxes. So I just want to be fully transparent, though, because if we do not get this money back from the legislature, right now we're almost three sessions into our budget season that we started with a 15% increase. And we know that's going down because we've already cut nearly $1 million from that. But potentially next year's tax increase could be much more. And if we don't get that 500,000 back out of the legislature, we also will have less retained funds to help offset that. So we want to make sure that we fully understand the vote we're going to take. So with that, is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote as required. Erica.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Michelle. Michelle, you
Yes.
still there? Okay, thank you. Lynn.
Yes.
Jessica.
Yes.
Brenda.
Yes.
Chair votes yes, it is unanimous. We will address that. Hopefully we can get those numbers off to the state, and they can button up the books for Derry, and we'll have a tax rate moving forward. All right, thank you folks for taking a half hour of your time this evening. And I appreciate you being able to get in here for an emergency session this evening. And we'll see everyone budget Monday night. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Brenda.
Yes,
All right.
sorry.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Gordon.
Take care.
Thanks, Gordon.
Everyone. Good night.